Okay, and we're on. So welcome everyone. Thanks for showing up live, and hello to those of you that are on the recording too. We may not continue recording these, but I did promise it this time. And so I will send the recording out for anyone who's registered for this call. So that way, those of you that are here live can watch it again if you so choose. And if you weren't able to make it live, then yeah, we'll make sure that you're included in the energy of this live event. And yeah, it works just as well in the recording. There is no time and space. So yeah, so nice to see you all. I'm Jerry. This is Des, for those of you that haven't met. And yeah, we've been friends since like 2011 and been through a hell of a lot together. So yeah, so we're going to be sharing quite vulnerably with you tonight, and talking a lot about the nervous system and attachment styles. So how many of you are pretty well versed in nervous system regulation? Anyone? Yeah, and the importance of it. And how many of you have also studied a little bit around attachment styles? Attachment and relationship. A few hands go up. All right. Yeah, well, and if you haven't, then great.
And yes, Kesh, go ahead and make all the notes you want, my friend.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so research scientist at HeartMath. Dana, that's so exciting. Okay, so a lot of this is going to resonate, or you're going to have your own language that you'll see just totally translates to what you would have been researching there and learning about. So yeah, this will probably have a little file in your brain. You can put it in already. Yeah.
Yeah. So first thing we want to do is just do a little check-in. So take a moment to just arriving in this present moment, arriving with your body, arriving with all your parts, and just noticing, what is going on in your body. Are your thoughts overactive? Are you feeling some sensations? Are you noticing some emotions? Are you distracted? So just taking a moment to really just be with and welcome what is. Being the witness of your thoughts. Become the witness of your emotions. Become the witness of the sensations in your body. Just a little check-in. And then whatever you're inspired to share in the chat, we'd love a few words. A few words or a phrase. Where are you at? What's happening for you? And then we can just get a feel for everyone and plug in, connect. Because we're all about connection and deepening that intimacy with yourself and with others. Dana, yeah, overwhelmed but staying in balance. Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that one.
Kesh is a 4 between 1 and 10.
A 4. Okay. Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe is there a word or something that you can be a little bit more specific to describe a bit what's going on for you? What is a 4? So I'm actually just going to mute you, Kesh, because there's a little bit of background noise. So so if you wanted to share anything, then you'll have the opportunity to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, do you want me to talk or type?
Yeah, type. Yeah, type in the
Okay.
chat. So just typing a few words, just sharing, you know, putting yourself into the circle, right? So this is our Zoom circle, our quantum shift circle. And so just put your voice in there, you know, whatever you're inspired to share about where you're at, what you're feeling. Yeah. I saw a woman in the supermarket that reminded me of my daughter. Yeah. So Kesh's daughter was beautiful, beautiful soul and friend of mine, and she passed a while ago. So yeah, so it's always there, right? That those memories and the reminders and the love and the grief and the connection and all of it. Yeah, feeling that. Renee, frustrated and feeling more grounded after taking a moment just now. Yeah, even just a moment to just acknowledge those parts, right? Your thoughts, your emotions, your body, and just check in with them. It's a powerful practice. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so just for your own, you know, your own purposes, just acknowledging those parts and just allowing yourself to be where you're at. Just taking a moment to be with what is. And like I said, we're going to be going through nervous system regulation, the importance of that, how it's related to your attachment style, and your ability or inability to really connect deeply with yourself and in relationship, and sort of see where that goes. So we'll have an opportunity to really explore that. And our goal is to give you an experience, you know, a heart opening experience, a connecting experience, some tool that you can take away with you so that when you leave here, you know, you do feel a little more calm. You feel like your nervous system has been regulated. And that's the power of a group too, right? To help co-regulate one another. Or it can do the very much the opposite. You know, you know that if you watch a lot of news, that, you know, that often dysregulates us watching the news, especially when it's bad news. And there's a lot of things that, you know, can cause some triggers to come up from the past. And it starts to activate some worry, some different things in our bodies a lot of the time. And so, yeah, we're going to be sharing some good news. Yeah, some co-regulating breath. And I know, Des, you have some favorite ways to regulate. And I just want to say that the first thing to do is just acknowledge what is, right? And just show up for whatever is showing up for you. Like, it's all happening for you. So show up for all those parts. Take a moment to connect with yourself, connect with your thoughts, connect with your emotions, connect with your body without moving to change it or shift it. And so when I was teaching parenting way back, I loved the phrase that it's important to connect before you correct. And so that was, you know, as far as parenting goes, like, connect with your child before you correct your child, so that it's coming from the right place, right? It's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a centered parent. And we need to learn to do that for ourselves as well. Like, connect with ourselves first before we start to correct or try and change anything or try and shift anything. Like, acknowledge what is, because that's really what love would do. So maybe we can just start with a little bit of regulation, and then And then we'll share a little more about these quantum shift circles too. Did you want to lead us in some regulating, Des? Or do you want me to?
No, we can certainly do that.
One of your favorite ways to calm the nervous system.
There's a few ways that I go into. I find them most effective when there is something that's already activated within us, right? So this is very much about cultivating the capacity to recognize when we are starting to feel dysregulated, when we're starting to feel anxious, when we're starting to feel a tightness. Ideally, we can catch ourselves before it hijacks us, right? Before there's this rush of shame that you can't even hear or see because it's so intense, or there's such a profound sense of fear that kicks in that there's a desire to like panic, either disappear or like lean in too hard, right? So, but ideally what we want to do is become more and more cognizant of our internal world so that we can begin to reparent a lot of these patterns that have happened to us that were laid down in our youth, right? A lot of this stuff, because when we're born into the world, we are dysregulated. Like a baby cannot self-regulate. Its nervous system is not capable of self-regulating. And so that's where we need parents and caregivers in our lives that are well regulated, and they come in and they co-regulate. It literally radiates off you when your nervous system is in a state of regulation. And that's where co-regulation comes in play. So these activities, one of them I'll lead us through, it's called VUing, is a way of attending to yourself, to being your parent, to come to your child who's dysregulated, your inner child who's being triggered, and come to your assistance and regulate yourself. And from there, you can make better decisions about what to move forward with. So one of these is called VUing, V-U, VUing. And it's a tonation that we make. And the whole purpose of it is to connect with the vagus nerve, if you've heard of this, and it calms it down. So when you're in the state of agitation, there's different places. I'm going to not get into the details in this particular call, but there's different places in our nervous system that have a different kind of reaction, whether you're shutting down or you're attacking, your fight or your flight is triggered, or your freeze is dependent on where in your nervous system is being activated. And this VUing just relaxes the whole thing. So it doesn't really matter if you're in a state of like freezing and you're just like, if you're in that agitated sense of trying to run away or to fight. So VUing, what you do is you take one hand and you tuck it under your armpit. The other hand, you reach across yourself like a hug. There's something because you've got a lot of nerve endings here. And so what we're doing is we're self-connecting, and you take a deep breath. And on the exhale, you say VU. If you're familiar with oming, like, om in yoga, it's like that, but you say VU. So big, deep breath in. I want to invite everyone to join me in this. Just VU. And we'll do it 2 more times. Deep breath in. VU. Last one. VU. So hopefully you're feeling a little more grounded in your body, a little more at ease, a little more sense of regulation. There's a tendency to want to escape out of dysregulation, right? Where we're moving to correct it, sort of say, to escape it through avoiding it or by quickly taking action in any attempt to get out from underneath it. But ideally, we want to arrive in the moment with it, just as you would if you had a screaming baby, just holding the baby and just allowing. This isn't about shushing it or telling it not to cry, but just allowing your own gently regulated nervous system, trusting that from a regulated place, eventually that child will attune to you and find some solace and begin the process of learning how to self-regulate through your self-regulation. And VUing is such a beautiful way when you're really starting to feel like you're going to go over a cliff to come back to yourself and begin to co-regulate with yourself and bring yourself back to a state of centered groundedness where you can tap into a deeper wellspring of wisdom, so you know what action to take or not take, or that you expand your capacity to hold the space for the intensity of these big feelings that we have, because with intimacy comes intensity. And if our nervous system isn't accustomed, if it doesn't have capacity through practice to hold, to effectively hold strong emotions, what we want to do is fight or run, right? Or like I said, we can freeze. There's fawning, but that sort of plays into, it's a bit of a different area that gets tapped into with fawning, which is people pleasing. But essentially what we're trying to do is arrive to ourselves, into our center point, still enough to hear and be present for, and begin to be consciously aware of, what does it feel like to be scared? What does it feel like to feel hopeless? What does it feel like to have ecstasy? Because even our deeply positive emotions can feel so intense, we try to duck out of them. We try to like wiggle out from underneath the intensity of the fullness of the expression. And often our feelings are old. You know, this is stuff that we experienced as children, where we utterly lacked the capacity to fully digest, fully process the emotional experiences. And they remain trapped in our bodies, in our nervous systems, waiting for us to step into a capacity, into a maturity where we can arrive for those and finish feeling them. And you'll know you have some trapped in there, because you'll probably keep recreating those situations that keep tapping into that same felt experience. And the gift in that is it's bringing it to, it feels like life's happening to you, like, damn it, why this again? But what it is an invitation, like, oh, this again. There's an opportunity here for me to address this differently. There's an opportunity here for me to come to my own rescue, so to say, and be present with myself and regulate and finally digest this thing that's been stuck in here all these years and let it go. In integration, it softens, and you're not going to continuously recreate those situations to recreate that experience, because it's finally digested. So yeah, it's good news.
It's good news. And,
Yeah.
Really, more than ever, we need these tools. We need these practices, because we are in this shift. Our consciousness is shifting, our reality is shifting, our world is shifting, our, internally and externally. And when there's a shift going on and there's a lot of changes happening, it can feel like we're out of control. And it will trigger the unresolved emotions in us. It will trigger that, the traumas, and bring them up to the surface. And so can we actually meet them? Can we have like these centering practices? Like, thank you, Des, because I actually felt like I felt it. I felt a difference, just the 3 VUs. Like, it's so great to just have these little things that it's like, oh yeah, I'm back in my center where everything is all right. Because our center is our inner parent, reparenting ourselves, showing up for ourselves. And so these quantum shift circles, like, really are helping people to shift into the new paradigm of consciousness that is led by love. So we're not living in survival mode anymore. We're not living in fear anymore. And like that, like our programming would have had us do. And why we have all this insecure attachment, because in the new paradigm, really, we need to find our own secure attachment, and then interdependent relationships, and learn what that even looks like, what that sounds like, what that feels like, because hardly any of us had a role model of that. We weren't raised in this beautiful, loving space where our parents had the capacity to hold space for their emotions, let alone our emotions. And so now it's up to us, right? It's up to us to reparent ourselves. It's up to us to lead the change we wish to see, and to learn what it looks like to just thrive in a frequency of love rather than surviving in a frequency of fear. And there's a bridge from that old paradigm of codependency and dysregulation and, all of the neediness and the victim consciousness into this new paradigm where we kind of get glimpses of what's available and how beautiful and how amazing and how intimate and how loving it is, this unity consciousness. But how do we get there? And so that's really what these quantum shift circles are all about, is helping to bridge that gap between the old paradigm and the new paradigm, and to lead the change that we wish to see in the world. All of the systems that are kind of breaking down, the education system, the political system, the economic system, the financial system, you name it. We need to build something that works, something that's sustainable, something that's regenerative. And yeah, so Des and I have been kind of dreaming this for our whole lives, I think. A world that just works for everyone, where people just love each other, and our very presence just helps people to regulate and reminds people who they are, because our presence is love, our presence is harmony, our presence is peace. But most of us aren't very present. And so it does start with regulating our nervous system and finding that inner presence, which is the inner parent. So yeah, thank you for joining, and hopefully that resonates with some of you. Like, we've done a few of these quantum shift circles. We've only had, is this only our second one on Zoom?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so our second one on Zoom, and then we've done a few in-person ones. We have an in-person one tomorrow. So if you're in the Edmonton area and you want to join us in person, you can do that. There'll be some similarities and some differences for the Zoom call, but we wanted to make sure that everyone could access these calls no matter where they're from. So, because I know we both have clients from different areas, different parts of Canada, different parts of the world. So yeah, nice to just make these available and play together with some of the people that are on the leading edge of this evolution that we're moving through. Did you want to add anything to that, Des?
No, I think you said that pretty succinctly. I loved the bridge between the old paradigm and the new paradigm. Like, that just really, I've always felt like I've a bridge, I was born in a time between digital and analog, and I've always been the go-between between people. So very much feeling like a bridge. That's a really beautiful way to put it. And in this new paradigm, it isn't just all rainbows and unicorns and happiness for all. What it is having the skill set to navigate conflict in a way that actually increases intimacy rather than rupturing it, right? So it's good because we've learned skill sets. It's good because we're living from a place of maturity and a place of being willing to face reality, rather than in, a lot of our behavior patterns we grew up with was like going along to get along and just be nice, and to hide from our own truth in many respects in the name of trying to preserve relationship. And that basic building block, you can see how, like, credit is an illusion, and how that's starting to blow up, how politics is not even real leadership, and that's starting to blow up. And like, so just all of these areas in our life where we've been conditioned to fake it till we make it. And we're finally at the point where that paradigm just is like collapsing under the weight of its own bullshit, right? And so what is emerging from that is authenticity. And how do I cultivate the skill set to be authentic, because it feels so vulnerable,
Unsafe.
to be real, right? So how do we cultivate capacity for vulnerability? How do we cultivate skills to hold the space when somebody might approach us who's perhaps lacking a little bit of skills in their communication style? But, can we hold the space for that a little bit, like you would a child who's still learning how to walk? You don't give them shit because they're falling down. You have patience for learning how they learn to walk, right? So how can those of us that are being drawn to a quantum shift circle, I mean, that name is, not everyone's going to be down with that. So if you're one of the people that's drawn to that, you too are one of these bridge peacemakers, one of these on the leading edge of learning how to adult as a human species, right? Like, we're moving out of toddlerhood, human species toddlerhood, into human species adulthood. And it's so exciting. And so I just want to welcome everyone here and I'm excited to share what I've learned, most of it the hard way. I know Jerry, as a plethora of knowledge and wisdom, learned the same way. And to me, that's always the best kind of wisdom, is the kind you've actually embodied because you've learned it. You didn't just read about it. And I look forward to sharing that with you guys and hearing about your own journeys and just pooling our collective wisdoms that we might grow together and, yeah, bring this world into fruition by being living examples of it.
Yeah, well said. Woohoo! Yeah, I see Dana's one of us here. She's like, part
Yeah.
of my soul mission work is to bridge, right? Bridge the gap
Yes.
between science and spirituality, which are really just aspects of one whole. Yeah. Yeah, we think that there's like this separation, but no.
There's not.
It all works together. Yeah. So yeah, and I've been I studied with a Zen Buddhist master for 6 years, and I've had more than one dark night of the soul, and been coaching people and coaching myself through a lot for many years now. I guess I started seriously coaching in 2009, with parenting from heart, and then shifted to living from heart center. And Des is like a reader extraordinaire of your charts, your astrology, your I can't even remember all the names of all the things that you do, Des. The tarot cards and the
Gene keys and human design. And yeah, all of it is just, yeah, maps to your inner workings, because that's the whole point for me. It's an inside out job. So I just use all that to help guide us inside.
Yeah, and I'm all about self-love, forgiveness, and relationship coaching. So yeah, so a little bit about us. And yeah, we really wanted to dive into how the nervous system and how we are raised, and some of those unresolved emotions are connected to our attachment styles and our ability to connect or not connect in relationship. So I think I'm just gonna share a chart from a book, and it's actually a book called Polysecure. And so it's really about secure attachment more than anything. It's about attachment styles, and also, just that choice between monogamy and polyamory. But I thought it was a really good chart, so I'm going to screen share, and then maybe Des, you can share a little bit about the different attachment styles, if I can pull it up here. Oh, is that sharing? No, it's not. Hang on. Okay. Oops. Yeah, so the author is this Jessica Fern of this book. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great.
So let's jump into the attachment styles. You've got your secure attachment, which I'll get into in a second. There's avoidant, anxious, and then what she calls disorganized, or I call blended. This is very much a secure attachment would be conflict arises. You feel a sense of agitation around the conflict because that's a natural response, but you feel so well resourced that you're confident that you'll move through the conflict to be experiencing more intimacy together and to find a win-win-win for all parties involved. So that's secure. Or if the relationship is going to dissolve because a win-win-win isn't available, then there's a spaciousness around that, and there isn't a need to turn it into a good guy, bad guy, a giant fight, a lot. Like, it can just be allowed to die a very natural, gentle death. So that's secure attachment. Does most people identify as having that?
Hell no.
Yeah. Terrence says yeah. Okay. Well, and congratulations if you do, because that would have taken a significant amount of personal development work and or a set of parents that few have. So most people, the general part of the population, it says 50 to 60%, but I think a lot of people might self-identify as having secure attachment, but you put them in an actually very challenging conflict situation and that dissolves. Like, had you asked me a few months ago what style of attachment I had, I would have said secure, because I know the right answers. right? I know what a secure relationship would be like, and I like to imagine that I had that style, but the reality is, in a high tension conflict situation, I definitely devolve personally into an avoidant attachment style. So yeah.
Me too. Like, and I've really just realized how, geez, I still do have this avoidant thing going on. So I think probably a lot of people are having these realizations, and, the carpet's been kind of pulled back, and we're starting to have to deal with the unresolved stuff and the stuff that we did think was resolved. Like, I would have totally said I was secure attachment, and all of my clients would have too for the last 10 years, right? But now all these little parts, these hidden parts that have been deeply hidden and suppressed, they're coming to the surface because they can't come with us in the new paradigm.
No, we have to heal through these. It's part of the maturation process. And I love referring to this growth as just maturing, because it's not a moral judgment. It's not an ethical judgment. It's just a sapling growing into a tree. A sapling isn't deficient. It isn't, missing tree. It's just sapling being a sapling. And as a species, that's where we've been. So this isn't about creating judgment or self-condemnation, right? But it's so important and valuable to really be willing to take a sincere assessment and to really be humbled a little bit by our own behaviors so that there's some room for growth. Right. And again, this is not, humble and shame are not the same thing. Humble is open, willing. There's a student kind of mindset involved. Shame is so debilitating. It shuts us down from learning. So always wanting to avoid shame, self-condemnation, and instead be curious and having a sense of humor. I have found laughing at myself, because I have to tell you, I was one of these people, like, I could not take even this much criticism from anybody because I was so self-critical. Like, I had no capacity for any external criticism. So when you're like me, it becomes extremely challenging to grow because there's no room. Like, I would not receive external observations about behavior that I was doing. And what reminds me is there's this video, and maybe we'll include it in the email or whatever, but it's this girl and she's got this giant nail like jammed in her forehead like this. And she's sitting on the couch with her boyfriend talking about how much headache she has and how hard her sweaters keep getting caught on this nail. And her life is just so hard because of this nail. And the boyfriend's like, well, you have a nail, like maybe you could just pull out the nail. And she gets all upset with him. Like, I don't need you to give me answers. I just need you to listen to me. But the truth is sometimes we do need answers. Like, we need to open our capacity to receive that outside observation to help you see that, oh my God, there's a 6-inch nail in our forehead. If you pull that out, the relief, right? But it takes nervous system capacity to be willing to learn, to be willing to be taught, to be willing to be shown an area that maybe you're not performing at a perfection level for any reformed perfectionists out there. So avoidant attachment often will have a sort of perfectionistic tendency to it because I want to elevate myself out of the mess of the human experience. I want to know all the right answers. I want to remove myself from the discomfort of recognizing how messy this relationship is. And often children who had parents that they themselves had really dysregulated nervous systems, and they would use the child as like a teddy bear almost as a means of trying to self-regulate, right? So you get what's called the parentified child, or a parent who would, bemoan all their stresses onto an 8-year-old kind of thing, where they're not at all at the correct age to be holding space for a parent's stress. That'll often create an avoidant attachment where you really just, under the face of conflict and criticism, is like, oh, I'm out of here. There's 1,000 million other choices I have in relationships. I have no desire to get embroiled in this. And there's also a tendency to project a lot of stuff onto the other person as being incapable or being less developed than you, because avoidant attachment, their tendency is to self-regulate. So they'll withdraw from the conflict and they'll arrive for their own emotional regulation. once they've done some healing. Prior to that, they'll just exit stage left. They'll often medicate with drugs or alcohol or shopping or other means of just like getting out of the emotional discomfort by running away from it, right? But once there's some growth that's happened, and this is where I fell into this trap, is, oh, well, I'm going to just self-regulate, like, oh, there, now I've got it figured out. But what I would do in conflict is I would exit, self-regulate, hold space for my partner, but I would never be vulnerable and share with my partner, which is part of the interdependence, right? Not to be confused with codependence. We might get into that later. Moving along though, then we have the anxious attachment. And these are the people that if you don't text them back in 3 seconds, they're like, oh my God, are we okay? Is everything okay? I need to know. Is it? And they just, it's like very, very needy would be what an avoidant would call it. Very like always seeking validation, always seeking a sense of being made to feel safe because the other person is forever like, yeah, you look great. Yeah, you're pretty. Yeah, I love you. Yeah, I can't imagine. Like always having to validate the relationship, always having to validate the other person's experience. And what happens, as you might imagine, is often an avoidant and an anxious will get together because initially it feels really good. And then over time, the avoidant feels smothered by the anxiously attached, and the anxiously attached feels deeply unmet and ignored by the avoidant. And so then they break up rather than working together to see how their attachment styles are bringing up an invitation for growth. They decide the other person is broken and part company. And then you've got the insecure, disorganized or multi-leveled or varied, where it really is dependent upon the circumstance of the relationship itself. So maybe your go-to in an intimate lover type relationship is to go avoidant, but perhaps with your own children, you maybe have an anxious attachment where you're like chasing after them for attention or something. So it is completely possible to have a little of both. It doesn't really matter because regulation is important for both, as is a willingness to connect, right? So there's a solution for both of them, but it can be very helpful to tap in and see, what is my tendency? Do I back out and then self-soothe and then kind of are always keeping a half an eye out on this person who's going to become overly needy? Or am I the one that consistently in my relationship feels like everyone's abandoning me and they're running away from me? And when I need them the most, that's when they exit stage left, right? So this can be helpful to see if there's a tendency towards one more than the other one, or if it really is a 50-50. I mean, that's good to know. This is all about our self-knowledge, right? The more that you can understand yourself, the more that you can witness your behavior patterns, the more that you can bring some openness and some playfulness to those, then we can invite in some healing. We can invite in some tools to help ourselves either reconnect with the other, or if what we're missing is reconnecting with the self, because that anxiously attached is looking for soothing from the other person because they really struggle with self-soothing, right? So their medicine is to learn how to self-regulate, self-soothe. The medicine for the avoidant attachment is to drum up the courage. And boy, it takes a lot of courage to reach out to the other and vulnerably express the fear that's happening inside. But when this comes together and you've got two people that are like really getting it, really taking responsibility for themselves and really working to cultivate a safe environment, the magic, the healing that happens and the connection to interdependence reveals itself. And it really is like quite magic. You can just see like, oh, all the energy that's been going into playing out these other two ways is suddenly freed up, like a beach ball that's finally been let go, that's, been trying to push it under the water, right? You let it go and it boings out. Energy just expands out like that when you can finally help yourself out of these patterns of behaviors, these patterns of connecting with others in less than effective ways.
I love your analogies.
No, thank you.
Yeah, so if your energy is drained, where is it going? Like
Where's
trying
it
to
going?
hold
Yeah.
you're trying to hold it together, trying to get what you need, trying to, you know. So yeah, learning how to self-soothe for anxious attachment for sure. And yeah, and avoidant attachment, like being vulnerable, asking for what you want and need. Because sometimes if you're avoidant, you don't even know you have any wants or needs, because you're just so busy judging the anxious person as being overly needy. Like, I would never be like that. I can handle myself. I can do it all myself. So we're just so used to doing it alone. and thinking it's, it's the higher road. And and now I've just been realizing how much, hang on, it isn't. Like they're both insecure attachment. They're not secure attachment. They're not leading to depth and intimacy like we could be having. And I've visited both for sure. Like I've been anxious and I've been avoidant. And so it kind of depends on the dynamic and relationship because yeah, right now my partner and I, we both default on avoidant attachment, but he's more avoidant than me. So I'd be the one that's more anxious in the relationship than him. And so I've heard it described as there's a turtle and a hailstorm in relationship, and because opposites usually do attract, so you will have kind of one that's going to take on the more anxious attachment style and one that's going to take on the more avoidant. And that's the turtle, right? So the anxious one is like the hailstorm, like, see me, listen to me, help me. Like, why aren't you hearing me? Why, and then just feeling like overly needy. And then the avoidant one is going to like turtle, like back in the shell. Okay, just too much, leave me alone. Like, why can't you just go in your shell and fix it,
And regulate.
and then come back later. So they have, yeah, huge triggers with each other. So in almost every relationship, there's going to be one that's more of the hailstorm and one that's more of the turtle.
Can you be anxious without expressing all that? Like more internally anxious, but not saying it? Not like saying, hey, but having all that inside. Or a lot of it.
Absolutely. And that would almost go under the category of where it's both, right? So I'm having all of this anxiety, I'm having a panic attack, and I've learned it's not safe to express that because it's only going to push them away.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to keep all of this anxiety inside me, right? And hope that eventually they come back around and then I'll feel soothed. But I know that if I tell them I need them, they're going to bolt, right? I mean, that's probably, does that sound like the pattern?
Yeah, or you don't want to create conflict, and but it's more just, well, the word preoccupied was on that chart, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like extreme, but it could just be there in the background on an internal level more than externally expressed. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Absolutely.
Yeah, preoccupied parent would be perceived as a child as like, it's not that you don't matter at all, but they're busy, they're preoccupied, they're not focused on you, they're not regulating, because an infant can't regulate their nervous system. They require the adults to regulate their nervous system, to teach them through example how to self-regulate, right? So when we let a baby cry it out, we're actually doing an enormous amount of damage to their nervous system, because by the time they stop crying, it's because they've basically checked out. Not because they've actually self-soothed and relaxed, it's that they've just abandoned themselves and abandoned the situation and gone into basically a freeze response, right? And so when you have a parent that's preoccupied, it isn't so much that you've been abandoned, you're not on the street, but they're not really there, really being present with you either. So it creates this felt sense of you're not sure if you matter. You're not sure if you're allowed to have needs. You're not sure if it's a reasonable expectation to have those needs met, right? So it's not extreme, like you said. So that's I'm glad that you brought that up too. But it's still affecting you, right?
Yeah, I was speaking about it more in terms of in a relationship, like what I might experience in a relationship with another, not what my parents were doing, but more like how I might internally experience some of the relationship dynamics.
Like your partner feels preoccupied to you?
No, like I would be preoccupied or anxious internally about, how I was affecting them, or are they this, are they the same things kind of that you expressed verbally, but not verbalizing it.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Kesh, did you have a question?
I have a question. How would sometimes some people are such that they prioritize others rather than themselves, and what would happen with a situation like this for somebody with those kind of priorities? Will they be taken advantage of, or will people come up and try to support that person? Or would everybody be greedy and egocentric and only what's in it for me kind of reaction? Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have Des, something that you?
Well, so a lot of this, another word that we could be using to discuss it is boundaries, right? And so often, and not always, but often people who are always serving others before themselves and are like that would be how they would self-identify. Oh, it's really important for me to serve others before myself, because we've been taught and conditioned that that's what makes a good person, right? You're either giving because you serve others ahead of yourself, or you're a selfish cad who's just taking everything for themselves. And those are our two options that we're generally presented with. But what I've found is many times people that carry that I serve others before myself actually have like a martyrdom thing associated with that, and where they're self-abandoning and they're giving more than they sincerely have to give, with this background hope of earning approval or earning love or earning some sort of reciprocal over giving back to themselves. So rather than needing to take responsibility for their own actual needs, and they're being honest about their own actual limits about what they have available to give in resources, whether that's time, money, energy, whatever your resources are. If you're giving more than you sincerely have to give, or you're giving to get, either way, there's a lack of authenticity in that. And if it's going to be out of balance. And so you're going to have an out of balance response. In fact, most people that overgive are absolutely surrounded by people they would call selfish, who just take and take and take, right? And the reason for that is to present the opportunity to, like, what does it mean to be selfish? What does it mean? It seems like no matter how much I give, I'm never getting my own tanks filled. And that's because that is your opportunity to fill your own tank. That would be a similar to falling into the anxiously attached category. Like I have to give and give and give and give and give to make myself valuable, to make myself lovable, to endear myself to the others so that I will be cared for. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, and yeah, just that whole conflict avoiding is coming up too, like constantly, addressing everyone else's needs as a way to avoid actually feeling and being with your own needs and your own anxiety and your own everything, right? So a lot of people pleasers are also avoidant and putting everyone else before themselves in order to avoid conflict, and in order to avoid conflict even with themselves and having to look at themselves. And so that's kind of the sad truth of, a lot of a lot of therapists I've worked with have admitted that, yeah, I mean, I went into therapy so I could like focus on everyone else's problems. And then the sad truth is I've never, it's one of my ways that I avoid dealing with my own problems. And so, yeah, when you're in coaching, when you're in relationship, important to just get honest with yourself. Like, what are you avoiding? What are you afraid to really feel and look at? And what are you not being honest with yourself about? What do you know about yourself that you wish you didn't know and you don't want anyone else to know?
That's a good question.
Like we're always kind of hiding certain parts, right? And it's part of being human. So this discussion isn't about blaming yourself or blaming your parenting style. I mean, honestly, you didn't have a role model of what this secure parenting looks like. And so now you get to be that for yourself. And that's really our only option, is to be our own secure parent and really develop that independently first. Like how do I show up for myself? How do I find that inner parent that can hold space for the part of me that is scared, that is, so afraid of putting myself out there and being vulnerable, so that I can just be brave. I can just find the courage to do it anyway, knowing that that's the only way to heal my attachment style, like that avoidant, is by actually asking for what I want to need, putting myself out there, being vulnerable, saying what I don't want to say, revealing what I don't want them to know, just baby steps at least. And then just having that inner parent say, it's all right, no matter how they respond, you just grew. You just reset your nervous system. You're rewiring your nervous system. You're rewiring that blueprint. So you absolutely can heal your childhood. Like it's never too late. And it starts by, doing your own inner child work and being your own inner parent, and then pushing that edge in our relationship. So yeah, so I think what we wanted to do is explore that a little bit more in a breakout room. Is there anything else you want to add first, Des?
Kesh?
Yeah. My daughter used to be doing that, helping everybody else, putting everybody ahead of her. And I was asking her, why are you doing this? And she confessed to me that in helping others, I'm hoping somebody will realize that I need help, so I don't have to deal with my own problems, and somebody else will. I'm guessing, I'm going to put this word that she'd never used. I need a rescuer.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes putting people ahead may have a hidden agenda in the background. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and we're raised on Disney and the prince and princess movies, and yeah, that wanting to be rescued or wanting to be the rescuer, the savior. Yeah. Yeah, so I know that this is stirring some stuff up for people. Like this is a lot. It's a big, huge conversation. I mean, honestly, we could do all of our quantum shift circles on this and just really work through all of this. But what we wanted to do is just give an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of sharing in a dyad, and then take you through a process of regulating. So we'll actually lead you through a meditative process. It's too bad a couple people left, because this is actually, we don't leave you like this, I promise.
Yeah. Stick it out. We'll give you the tool to.
You always leave feeling better than when you came. Like, that's our goal. But yeah, unfortunately, I think a few people, it was stirring some stuff up, and so they decided to leave. Hopefully they'll watch the replay later and get the meditation where we actually help them resolve some of that, and show them what that looks like, and actually do it with you, right? Because the power of a group to regulate together is exponential, as opposed to doing it by yourself. So even if you're watching the replay, know that this group energy is with you, and really tap into the power of the group to just, move through the process of regulating, loving yourself, addressing those parts, showing up as that divine inner parent for yourself. And then that child can finally receive what they always needed, in their childhood. Like, you get to be that for yourself, and we will lead you through that process. So before we do that, there's not a lot of people, but sorry, Cash, I just saw you. No, Cash, you're good. We appreciate your vulnerability, and don't concern yourself at all. People, and that's part of their regulation, right? If people need to, it's like, actually, what I need is just to be alone, then, that's fine, right? That's what they needed, maybe in order to regulate themselves, or, and it's also revealing. So an opportunity to just kind of look, okay, what was going on for me, and arrive for that. Like, why did I feel like I couldn't stay? What's happening for me? And hopefully they'll go and hold space for themselves, and do some some regulating, and show up for themselves, which is what we were going to do for you anyway. So it's yeah, people can feel overwhelmed for lots of reasons. Yeah. So whether it's the conversation, whether it's something else, because there's a
Something
lot,
happening in the background, like we don't know, right?
there's a
So
lot going on in the world.
don't take responsibility for other people's experiences unless they've asked you to.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Dana. Yeah, we don't know, right? We just, so yeah, so let's just trust that everyone is exactly where they need to be. And so we were thinking to just do some breakout rooms and just put 2 people in a breakout room where you have an opportunity to just kind of share some of what's coming up for you. But we were thinking to really address relationship. You know, so in relationship, what tends to be your patterns or your habits, or what are you most afraid of? What do you notice that you avoid? You know, some of those patterns. So do you avoid conflict? What are your habits? What are your patterns? Do you avoid being vulnerable, asking for what you want and need? You know, what are you I kind of want to say lying to yourself about, or not getting really honest with yourself about? What would the question be, Des?
Well, with a dyad, for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, you just ask the same question back and forth, and then eventually you wind up almost accidentally tapping into the truth of what's going on for you, because we almost have to work through our own defense mechanisms or our own mental thought processes, and then it's almost like you tap into your right mind, right? Like the creative impulse, the non-dominant side of the mind that just blurts the truth, right? So from that perspective, I'm just thinking maybe the question could be something along the lines of,
Because we were going to kind of role model it first.
yeah,
Demo it so you can kind of get a feel for it.
what do I need to know about my dynamics in relationship? Maybe. Or what do I need to know that I'm hiding from myself? Or what do I need to feel safe?
What do I need in order to feel safe?
What do I need to feel safe? Yeah.
In relationship or just?
Yeah, in relationship. What do I need to feel safe?
Yeah. I think we scared people off with the whole idea of breakouts and dyads. We do tend to kind of go a little bit deep because that's just who we are, right? But, I mean, with a small group, we can just kind of just discuss it and stay in the large group too. If this isn't resonating, we're always open, and you never have to, like, you can always just like say, hey, I'll stick around, but I'm not participating in the dyad or the breakout, and we won't put you in one, right? Like everything is always optional. Look after yourself.
Yeah.
But maybe, Des, we can just kind of role model that and then
Sure.
feel into the group and see what you're game for after that. So, yeah, you want to go ahead and ask, since you had the question and I didn't write it down. What do you need? What do you need to?
In relationship, what do you need to feel safe?
Okay. And so then I would just kind of receive that question. I always receive a question with a breath before I answer it, because otherwise I'm just going to be answering from a different place, right? So to just breathe and receive, what do I need to feel safe in relationship? It's interesting because what's coming up for me is I need someone to be open with me and vulnerable with me so that I can feel safe to be vulnerable with them. But it's like I need that first, almost like they open up to me, and then it's like, oh, which reminds me of when I first met Des. And she just like blurted out all this stuff. It's like, okay. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe she just shared all that stuff, like deep, dark, secret stuff. And I'm like, man, I feel so safe with her. Like anything goes now. So that is something that makes me feel safe, is when someone just shares everything, like the darkness, the light, all of it. So
Thank you. So when the person's finished and you as the listener feel like you've heard them, like you're not looking for further explanation, then just saying thank you to complete that and just allowing them to be received. It's not about going into a dialogue after and talking to them, oh yeah, yada, 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 yada. It's just thank you and stop. And then the next person gets to ask the question of the first person.
So what do you need to feel safe in relationship?
The first thing that comes to mind is lots of room to make mistakes.
Thank you.
In relationship, what do you need to feel safe?
The word that was coming to me was like quiet and silence. And so someone who can just hold space, just sit and be okay in the silence without having to move to change that.
Thank you.
In relationship, what do you need to feel safe?
When I finally do drum up the courage to share that I'm feeling uncomfortable or I'm feeling scared or I'm feeling insecure, I need my partner to warmly receive that, to not move to defend themselves or tell me why I needn't feel that way, but just to really just warmly acknowledge my feelings and tell me they understand and that I'm safe with them, that my feelings are safe with them. One of my favorite things to hear is all of you is welcome here. And that just really, whew, thank you, especially when their behavior lines up with that statement.
Thank you. Yeah, so
So
we kind of get the idea that we would just, we go back and forth and just start with, so I guess the phrase is in relationship, what do you need to feel safe? So I'm just going to type that in the chat. In relationship, what do you need to feel safe? And whatever part of you answers it is perfect, right? There's no judgment. There's no wrong way to do this. There's no wrong answer. So maybe your head will answer. Maybe your heart will answer. Maybe your body will answer, you know? But the idea is just holding space so you can really hear yourself and complete that communication and learn more about yourself. Yeah, really drop in. You're developing a more intimate relationship with yourself and with the space holder without them needing to respond at all. So how many are game to do? Are you guys game to do breakouts, or did you want to sort of stay in the larger group and just discuss it a little more? Who's game? Type yes in the chat. Dana's okay with it. Yeah, and it's totally okay to not if you don't want to go into a breakout too. Because really, oh, I guess there's only, is there only 3? Oh, that includes us. Wow, we really did lose. So yeah, maybe why don't we just go around? Like, are you guys okay to be recorded answering this?
because that's the thing. If you're in a breakout room, it's not going to be recorded.
Can you pause the recording?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, that might be better for me.
If I get it. Okay.
Okay.
I'm scared that if I get in a relationship, where would I be if my partner left? Yeah. So then that's, avoiding even getting in, getting in any kind of a relationship, even a friendship that has a potential can often happen because of that fear, right? That fear of being left or abandoned. And, opening your heart up to someone and that's a very, it's a very real thing because honestly, your partner will leave. Either they're going to exit somehow or other, whether it's death or sickness, or you're going to leave them, death or sickness, or whether it's just, leaving and choosing to separate. So you might as well alleviate that fear right now. It's guaranteed, right? We are going to be left. Everything in this life is temporary. It is. But risking it for love, just, it's always worth it.
One of the things I've found extremely helpful for that. My partner had a huge fear like of that, Kesh, of him becoming vulnerable with me and opening up and me exiting stage left because I have a history of doing that. And so it was actually a very legitimate fear on his part to be afraid that I would run. And the cure for him has been a practice of arriving for his own deep feelings. So, because the fear for him was that if I left, he would be left with this enormous empty hole and this grief that would just be, it would kill him. Was really, I mean, if he was to really get to it, it was, I might die of grief. Like that would really be the sort of unconscious fear of it, that my body would not have the capacity to hold the space for the intensity of the very horrible feelings my leaving would produce in him. And so for him, it did actually require me leaving to catapult his growth. But it, had he chosen to really start developing his own capacity to be present for the part of him that was afraid, because it isn't ever actually about the other person. We think it is, right? Oh, well, what if they leave me? Or what if they abuse me? Or what if they don't hold space for my feelings? What if they reject me? Often what happens is when we begin to do our own growth of self-acceptance, no longer self-abandoning, because if I'm avoiding conflict by sucking it up or going along to get along, I'm actually just internalizing that conflict. I'm betraying myself. I'm self-abandoning. I might have a lot of rage about that too, but I am afraid of expressing that to the other person because that might create rupture. So a lot of these deep fears we have of relationship, we can cure, for lack of a better word, by really beginning to cultivate a deep intimacy with ourselves and by learning how to hold space for grief, right? Because if you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that your nervous system can handle deep grief, as much as you might not want to have it, like nobody wants to feel grief, but if you know for sure through lots of experience that you can handle grief without exiting stage left, without self-medicating, without, creating even more trauma for yourself, then you needn't fear the thing. You might not look forward to it if it should happen, but the fear around it releases, and there's a spaciousness that opens up that says, I can experience anything. I can have extreme joy and ecstasy. I can have the deepest grief, and I can fully feel that in the wholeness of my whole body, in combination with earth, with these practices that we can do, like earthing, grounding, laying on the ground, and just inviting in all of the ancestors that you have, like our capacity, our nervous system, like what we can tap into to expand its capacity to hold all of the experience of being human is enormous. And there's all kinds of practices to expand that so that you needn't ever fear life ever again, because whatever shows up, it's somatically, like, this in the marrow of your bones and in the cells of your body that you can handle it. It's our fear of not being able to handle whatever it is, whether it's grief or joy, whether it's rage or it's ecstasy. It's our fear about not being able to handle it because that's still residing in our nervous system from when we were little and we couldn't handle it and we did check out. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. And understanding that, you are handling it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not in the most effective way or the best way, but you are handling it. And you can learn to handle it even better and ask for that help, ask for that assistance. And even if it is, I love that from your ancestors, just feeling that love that's always surrounding you. Like all of your loved ones that passed on, they're in you, they're with you always, in your heart, and you're breathing the same breath, the same, the same air. What was that saying when you did that ancestral healing about the ancestors and how you're like their dream?
You are the pinnacle of all of your ancestors' prayers. Like truly. And they are within you. And that we are the pinnacle of the love of all of them. Like you think of how many ancestors, how many people had to have sex in order for you to be here. Right? Like even if it was just momentary pleasure, maybe it wasn't a deep soul love story, but there's something in the moment of creation that is a miracle. over and over and over again. And that is you, and you are stardust. Like, that's not just woo woo. Like, our bodies are literally made up of all the same essence of what is in space and are made of our earth. And it's like, for myself, when I expand, because I've always had to do it all myself. So when I've now begin to do these practices where I'm opening to receiving help, and initially it had to be my ancestors or help from my spirit guides or help from Mother Earth, like not another human, right? So that was how my practice started to open like a flower to receiving support. And now that I've practiced that for a little bit, I'm risking asking other humans, other fallible humans for support and for help, right? Because now I actually have the resiliency that if they don't help me, if they screw up, so to say, right, it isn't going to be a catastrophic failure because I've built up enough resiliency that there's some room there. But yeah, to remember, like, oh yeah, like I am deeply supported by ancestors. I'm deeply supported by this planet. I'm deeply supported by the sun and the wind. And like you see, this endless breath, like, whew, just to pause and realize how deeply supported I am and how much there is available for me to lean into, right? Opens up my capacity to receive from valuable humans and receive connection and intimacy.
Yeah, and know that it is the life is fleeting.
Are you an empath?
I think everyone is. Yeah, I mean, I have to be mindful because I can certainly take on other people's feelings, which is what's led me to doing this work, because I was getting bombarded with people pleasing and dodging and pushing my own needs back, like trying to keep everyone around me because I needed them emotionally regulated so that I felt okay, because I couldn't find that separation, right? So yeah, the short answer is yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and me too. You know,
Mhm.
I'm one of those people. I had to make sure everyone else was okay in order for me to be okay, which is really codependency, right?
Mhm.
In order for me to be okay, I came last, but I'd zoom into the people that weren't okay, and then I'd have to like go and, you know, make sure they were okay, give them what they needed in order for me to be okay, because there was no separation. So I never even thought of it that way, that's, you know, but I knew it was kind of an empath thing, but it's like, yeah, it just, that lack of discernment and being able to separate mine from theirs. So it's because it's like the people outside of us are like parts of us, you know, and if they're dysregulated, then, you know, I can see how I made it my mission that I need to regulate them, and then I feel better, which is true.
But it's also not a healthy, it's not a sustainable practice for anybody who's ever been in a relationship where they've been the primary caretaker to somebody, you know, that narcissist empath dynamic, right? Where, and it's funny, somebody argued the point that being an empath is actually just as selfish as being a narcissist. And when I first heard that, I was like, how dare you? I give away my whole self. Like, I'm not selfish. I'm like, William, I'm doing it so that I feel good. Like, that is my motivation, isn't altruistic. It's so that I feel okay, right? But it's under the guise of,
okay,
yeah,
so you're okay. Yeah.
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 And it actually robs others from learning to cultivate their own self-regulation, right? Like, if they're always coming to me to make them feel okay, part of me gets to feel like the rescuer and kind of get off on that. Like, oh, look at me, I'm carrying them, right? But it's tied to that is always a little bit of resentment. And on top of that, I'm removing their own ability to cultivate that muscle within themselves. And what we need for interdependence, right? For what we need for this new paradigm we're moving into is that everybody has the capacity to be self-regulated and to have the courage to be intimate with one another, right? And that is the dynamic where we move out of codependency or like hyper independence, because those are just two sides of the same coin, right? And we find what truly interdependent means, because it does require a lot of our wounding in order to heal from it. It comes out the same way it went in. So if a lot of our wounds came from interpersonal dynamics, it actually requires an outside person to trigger that so that we can find the healing in it, right? We truly do need each other, but we need to find each other in a way that's healthy and doesn't just create more trauma because we're both coming at it from like unhealed, unaware places in that empath narcissist dynamic, or that rescuer, like the triangle, you've got the rescuer and the victim and the perpetrator, right? That dynamic, that triad, like we'll do that within ourselves too, right? So it's like recognizing there isn't a bad guy and a good guy and someone who needs to rescue. Like this is, right? It's like letting go of that paradigm, but there can still be a storyline. There can still be movement without that particular triad being the motivating force. Like we need to release that storyline and instead recognize that we're all empowered. We all have the capacity to be regulated and to just be like radiating that love and radiating that peace and tranquility. And when conflict does arise and we do get thrown off our center, if we have a community around us of largely regulated people, they can hold the resonance of regulation so that the two that are in conflict can return to the resonance of calmness, of regulation, and of love, right? Like, oh yeah, we love each other. Ooh, this triggered an old wound, but here we go. Like, here's an opportunity to heal it. And that's huge. And that's the other purpose of these circles, is to be finding, creating, and healing as a community, because it's actually it can be exponentially worse, but it can be so much better too, right? Depending on the people that are in that community.
Is that like recognizing your tribe?
Yeah. And it would be. And trusting your own gut, right? Like a lot of this is about learning to trust yourself, learning to trust your body's response to a situation. And if you're getting a little bit of a like, I don't know, like even if you don't know why you're getting it's okay to trust that. It's okay to exit stage left, right? Maybe in you'll look back on it and be like, oh, I was just overwhelmed and I probably could have stuck it out if I had asked for a bit of a moment, or if I had, you know what I mean? Like, but all of this, for me anyways, is about returning to your own center, returning to the source of your own wisdom, which you can really only access it if you're like in a at least semi-regulated state, right? And then your tribe does reveal itself when you start believing yourself. Like if you get a yes, believe it. If you get a no, believe it, right? Instead of trying to talk yourself out of what your actual response is. Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're probably all one big tribe. But in the meantime, I think we do have these sort of smaller pockets of really resonant people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that are, also really committed to growth and evolution.
Yeah.
So it's like looking for people that are that your values align with their values. Like, what are their core values? What is
Their
their
revealed values, not their stated values. The revealed
how do they
ones.
spend their time?
Yeah.
Like, right, look at their calendar and you'll see what they value. How are they actually spending their time?
Hmm.
And so like one of the big chunks for me is personal growth. And so getting in a relationship with, for me, they need to be willing to grow with me, or it's just not going to work. Right? If they're not into that, it's like, hey, I am who I am, and I like it or not.
Take me or leave me.
This is who I am. I'm like, whoa. Okay. So basically you're just happy to be stagnant. No, thank you. I'm not happy to stagnate, because stagnation is the mother of disease to me. And so it is good to kind of identify what do you stand for? What are your core values? How do you spend your time? Who do you spend your time with? Because that is what you're valuing. That's what you're energizing, and finding someone who's similar, or checking yourself. Maybe that isn't where your energy should be going. Like what you say and what you do might be two different things too, right? So that's inauthentic vibes that we give off then. So yeah, so I feel like maybe we can just like flesh that out a little bit more, that in relationship, what do you need to feel safe just as a group? And if I can pause the recording if people prefer for that, and we can just do some sharing, and then yeah, and then I'll start the recording again, and we'll just go through a little bit of a process, a somatic process to regulate. Does that sound okay? Should I pause there? Do you want the recording pause, or are you guys okay to record some shares?
Yeah, pause it.
Pause it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking for your need.
A few minutes ago. Okay.
Yeah. So now it's back on. Yeah. So are you feeling inspired, Des, or would you like me to Read
No,
a
you
little
can
bit of the
take the
relationship.
lead if you'd like. You're always awesome at these things.
Nope. Well, thank you. All right. Okay, so just noticing, what's been stirred up in you, and taking a moment to just drop into your breath. Become aware of the inhale and the exhale. Allowing your eyes to close and just go within. And letting yourself know that every part of you is welcome here. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're noticing, I want you to just welcome it. Allow it. And then just dropping into your body. Just feeling from the neck down what's going on in your body. What sensations are you noticing? And then when you reconnect with that question, what do you need to feel safe in relationship? There's going to be a visceral response in your body. What do you need to feel safe in relationship? And maybe there's this confusion. Maybe there's some fear that comes up. Maybe there's just like a feeling of dread. So maybe it has a label, and maybe it's just a lump, a big sensation in your gut, maybe a lump in your throat. So whatever it is, I want you to just welcome it. It is what it is. It's not bad. It's not good. It doesn't need to be fixed or changed. It just needs your loving presence. So whatever part of you just doesn't really feel safe in relationship, or doesn't feel safe to get into a relationship, or fears not attracting the relationship that you would desire, that would be a good fit for you, that would be a match for you and your energy and your capacity. Just go into your body and meet those fears. Meet that part of you. Notice where it is in your body. So doing a little body scan, and notice where you're feeling a little bit of tension, a little bit of tightness, maybe just a big lump, a block, where your energy isn't flowing freely. And then just say to it, I'm here. And take a breath. Inhaling and exhaling and giving it a little squeeze to let you know I'm here. I'm here with you. I'm present with you. I love you. You're allowed to be here. You're allowed to be afraid. You're allowed to be confused. And just taking a few more conscious breaths right into the center of this tension, of this feeling, of this block. Breathing into the center of it, breathing and surrounding it with your loving presence, with your breath. Calling in your divine supports, your ancestors, all of the loving supports to also assist you in just being with this block, this fear, this sensation, this part of you that just doesn't feel safe. I'm here. I love you. I'm listening. And just gently inquiring, what are you needing? How can I love you more? And then just listen and see if there's a response. Might be a word, might be a sensation, can come in all different forms. Or does it just need a little more of your presence, your love? I'm listening. Meeting it with all of your heart, with all of your compassion, with all of your attention, concentrating your full attention on this part of you that just needs your love, needs your acceptance. Give that part of you an experience of just how much you love it. It is 100% worthy of your love. No judgment, just compassion. This fear was birthed to keep you safe, to protect you. In fact, you might even have some gratitude. It's okay to be there. And just reassuring it that it's baby steps. We're going to just take baby steps together. And maybe ask this part of you that might be very much like an inner child to please forgive you. I'm sorry for any time and every time that I abandoned you, that I didn't know how to hold space for you, that I judged you, that I tried to fix or change you, that I avoided dealing with you or being with you because I didn't know how to be with you. I didn't have a role model of that. Please, please forgive me. I'm learning. Please teach me, guide me, show me how to love you more. Tell me what you need. I'm here. I'm here now. And I'll do my best to arrive for you whenever you show up, to take some time to connect, to love you, to listen to you. And just another long, slow, deep breath and tell it with all your heart, thank you. Thank you for this communication. Thank you for this opportunity to hold space for you, to offer my love and my attention. I love you. A few more long, slow, deep breaths. Just breathing with it, breathing into it. Breathing in this beautiful divine pink light right into the center of this feeling. And just notice that maybe it becomes a little bit lighter, a little more spacious. Maybe there's some movement. Whatever happens is perfect. Just offering it your love. The breath of the divine, this beautiful pink light Just visualize filling yourself up from the top of your head all the way down to the bottom of your feet, the tips of your fingers, with this divine pink light, pure love, unconditional love, the most unconditionally loving parent. I'm here. I love you. I'm listening. And then again, a breath of gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the healing that just took place. Thank you for your willingness to connect with me, to communicate with me at whatever pace feels safe for you. And then very gently, very slowly, just coming back into this time and space, into the room, and just bringing this sensation all the way into your heart to be integrated. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and rejoin the group. Those soft eyes of your heart. Really just practicing seeing through the soft eyes of your heart. Seeing all the love and all the support that is here for you. You're not alone. You can go within and you can do it for yourself. You can also receive it from all of us. Just feel this. Feel the calm, the love, the acceptance that this is a space of no judgment. In this moment, you're perfect, you're whole, you're complete, just as you are. And you're forgiven. You're forgiven. You're forgiven. We've all done the best we can. The best we can with our conditioning, with our programming. And we're really learning to become more of who we really are, more authentic, more alive, more connected, more loving. So thank you for your willingness to join us on this call and to elevate the love and to invite in that deeper connection and invite in those soulmates that are the foundation, right? That connection that Dana was talking about. It's all possible. So why not play a little bit in this adventure? Get curious in this adventure that we call life. Reconnect with your inner child because they'll help you be more playful and not take life so seriously. Be a little lighter and know that this too shall pass. That's the good news and the bad news. This too shall pass. Life is fleeting. Take advantage of it. It's an adventure. It's a dream. And we are the players of this dream of life, and we're also the watchers, the witness of the dream of our lives, and we're also the producer of the dream of our lives. Hopefully that was supportive and you feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more regulated, just showing up for just 5 minutes like that. For whatever is arriving for you.
Thank you, Jerry. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I felt it and I felt all of you. So thank you. Because it is exponential, like the healing that can happen and that co-regulation, and how you said that, a regulated nervous system is the best thing we can do for ourselves and for every single person on this planet.
Mhm.
It's the best thing you can do for, especially if you're a leader, right? But really, we're all leaders.
Yeah.
Like to just walk into a room with this regulated nervous system where you just do a few voos and you walk in as love, you walk in as peace, you walk in as harmony. Every doorway you walk through, I'm love, I'm peace, I'm harmony. That is what my presence is. And so all I need to do is be present. And I start to regulate everyone else in the room. And sometimes they don't even know what hit them, but all of a sudden they just get this wave, this wash of calm, of connection. And that is what I wish for you. That's what I'm practicing, like just being that presence of love, harmony, connection. And it's absolutely possible. So hopefully we'll see you again next month. I think so. We're gonna do tomorrow if you want to come in person, and then next month we had, I think, August 15th for in person and probably the 14th for a Zoom. Des, I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're gonna do like the Wednesdays, right? The Wednesday before. So the Zoom on
Yeah, 14th
August,
and 15th. Yeah.
Zoom on August 14th. In person on the 15th. And tomorrow's at the Sweet Pea Cafe in Edmonton at 7 o'clock. So we do have extra seats, so you can just show up if you're available. We'd love to see you. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you there, Kesh. It'd be nice to get an in-person hug. Yeah, love and hugs. And we do offer these by donation. And so if you are inspired to donate, we'd be super appreciative of that. And I'll type you can e-transfer PayPal. I'll type it in the chat, livingfromheartcenter@gmail.com. And any amount is appreciated, but normally it's kind of like that cross between the value that you feel that you received and how much you feel you can afford. And find that authentic
sweet spot.
Sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's part of the new paradigm too, moving forward, is using our money to be an expression of where we find value, and doing that in a way that is not over-serving or underserving, right? Like this is about finding our authenticity and finding our truth, and using that with the favors we give people, with all our resources, our time, our money, and our energy. Where is that sweet spot, that intersection of what feels like what I want to give, what I sincerely, again, this is good advice for people pleasing too. Where's that cross section of that sincere desire to serve my beloved, my friends, my family? And what energy do I actually have available to do so without depleting myself? Right? This is about serving from that cross section of the truth, the authenticity of where am I at? What do I have available? And in a sincere expression of my gratitude and my joy. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And I do hope that we get to see you tomorrow in person for those of you that are in town.
Where are you at, Dana?
I was just writing something in the chat. I have to go, but I'm in Henderson, Nevada, near Las Vegas.
Oh, wow, nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, well, hopefully we'll see you on Zoom again. Thank
It's
you.
really nice to meet you, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you.
Dana.
Mahalo.
And how about you, Karen? Where are you from?
I've got to go. Take care.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I'm from Edmonton.
Oh, you're
nice.
from Edmonton. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, are you thinking of joining us in person at all?
I missed where you said you were going to be tomorrow.
It's called the Sweet Pea Cafe and Playhouse. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
And then if you're available, just come. We have extra
All right. And
Yeah.
it's at 7.
at 7 to 9. Yeah.
Okay.
Playhouse. So we're in the back room. So the far right door, there's you go right into the workshop space. Or if you come
Okay.
early, you can come into the cafe. But if the cafe's closed, then we have the door propped open for the workshop space.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you for that. I really enjoyed today's session.
thank you.
Good.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around and thank you for being here.
Okay.
Thank you, Kesh, for being our man, representing the masculine. We appreciate that. And we do usually have a few people that come to in person that are men as well, but you never know, right? You never know who's going to be there, but everyone,
Well,
everyone is welcome.
I will see you guys tomorrow.